This video contains descriptions of real historical events, including violence and disturbing subject matter. All content is presented for educational purposes based on verified public records. Viewer discretion is advised. In 1966, two men were found dead on a hill overlooking a Brazilian city. They lay side by side, neatly dressed in suits. Over their eyes, each man wore a crude mask cut from sheets of lead. Beside them was a notebook, with a final entry written like a set of instructions. It described a time to take capsules and a signal to wait for. There was no sign of how they died. So what were the two men on Vintem Hill waiting for? And what were the masks meant to protect them from? The two men were Miguel José Viana, aged 34, and Manuel Pereira da Cruz, aged 32. They were electronics technicians and television repairmen from the city of Campos in the state of Rio de Janeiro. They were known as serious, intelligent, hard-working men. Neither was a fool, and neither was reckless. On the morning of the 20th of August 1966, the two left home together. Miguel told his family he needed to buy materials for their work, some equipment they required. He withdrew a sum of money before they left. They told their families they would be back that evening. What they did not say, and what no one fully understood until later, was that the two men shared a private interest that went far beyond television repair. They were deeply involved in spiritism, the belief in contact with spirits, and they had become fascinated by the idea of making contact with beings they believed existed beyond the ordinary world. They traveled by bus to the neighboring city of Niterói. A receipt later found showed that Miguel had bought a raincoat despite the dry weather. A shopkeeper remembered the two men, and remembered that one of them kept anxiously checking his watch, as though they had an appointment they could not be late for. They bought a bottle of water and a packet of snacks at a bar. And then they walked toward a hill called Morro do Vintem Hill. It was the last time anyone saw them alive. The next time they were seen, days later, the strangeness of what surrounded them would make the case famous around the world. On the 25th of August 1966, a young man was flying a kite on the slopes of Vintem Hill. Pushing through the dense vegetation, he came upon something he was not prepared for. Two men lying on the ground. The bodies were partly hidden by the undergrowth, side by side, on a patch of the hillside. They were dressed in smart suits. They lay on their backs, calm, almost composed. And over the eyes of each man was a mask, crudely cut and shaped from gray sheet lead. The police who responded found a scene that made no sense to them. There were no signs of violence on the bodies. No wounds. No marks of a struggle. The men's clothing was orderly. Nearby lay an empty water bottle and a packet of snacks. There was a small towel. And there was a notebook. The notebook contained the detail that has defined the case ever since. A set of handwritten instructions, like a countdown. Translated, it read, roughly, at 16:30, be at the agreed place. At 18:30, swallow capsules, after the effect, protect metals, wait for the signal mask. It was a plan. A schedule for the evening of their deaths, written in their own hands. They were to swallow something at a set time. They were to protect metals, which seemed to explain the lead masks. And then they were to wait for a signal. The masks, made of lead, are the kind of material used to shield against radiation or against an intense light or force. The two men appeared to believe that something was going to happen on that hillside, something powerful enough that they needed to protect their eyes from it. The investigation was a disaster from the start. The bodies had lain on the hill for days in the heat before they were found, badly complicating any examination. The initial autopsy was inconclusive. Crucially, the investigators of the time did not test the internal organs thoroughly for poison, and key samples were lost or never properly analyzed. This single failure may have destroyed any chance of solving the case. Because the most likely explanation, the one that fits the note, the capsules, and the lack of any wound, is that the two men deliberately swallowed something on that hillside, expecting it to do one thing, and it did another. There were other strange details. The money Miguel had withdrawn was never found with the bodies. A separate witness claimed to have seen an oval object with an orange glow hovering over the hill around that time, though such claims attach themselves to the case quickly and are hard to verify. The raincoat Miguel had bought was never located. The two men had told friends, in the period before their deaths, that they were preparing to make contact. One associate said they had been experimenting with rituals and substances meant to allow them to perceive or communicate with other beings. Whatever they believed was coming for them on that hill, they had dressed for it, scheduled it, and walked toward it willingly. The capsules, the masks, the note, the careful timing. This was not a robbery, and it does not look like a simple murder. It looks like two intelligent men carrying out a plan they fully believed in. A plan that killed them both. In the decades since, the explanations have divided into a few main paths. The first, and the most grounded, is poisoning. The two men, following their own beliefs, swallowed a substance, perhaps a drug they thought would open their minds to contact, perhaps something they did not fully understand. They expected an experience. They received a fatal dose. The lead masks fit this theory more easily than the alien theories suggest. Within the spiritist and contact beliefs the men followed, there was a real idea that one should shield oneself from intense light or energy during a moment of contact. The masks were not random. They were equipment, made carefully, for an event the men sincerely expected to survive. They believed they were protecting themselves. They were simply, tragically, wrong about what they were facing, because the danger was already inside the capsules they had agreed to swallow. The second path is the one that made the case world famous, the idea of contact with extraterrestrial or otherworldly beings. The reports of a glowing object, the masks resembling shielding, the men's stated desire to make contact, all fed a theory that something genuinely came to that hill. There is no verifiable evidence for it. But the case has lived in that strange space ever since, claimed by those who believe the two men met something the rest of us cannot explain. And there is a third, quieter possibility, that the men were used. That the missing money and the missing raincoat point to someone else who was present, who supplied the capsules, who knew the plan, and who walked away while the two technicians waited for a signal that was never going to come. No such person was ever identified. The truth is that the case was lost in 1966, in the first days when the bodies decayed in the heat and the crucial tests were never properly done. Whatever the capsules contained, the answer went into the ground with the men who swallowed them. The Brazilian authorities were never able to formally classify the deaths as murder, suicide, or accident. The case remains, to this day, officially unexplained. What we are left with is the image itself. Two intelligent men, in their best suits, lying calmly on a hillside at dusk, their eyes covered with masks of lead, waiting, with total faith, for something that never arrived. Two men climbed a hill at dusk, carrying masks they had made with their own hands. They followed a schedule, written in their own notebook, down to the minute. They swallowed something, lay down side by side, and covered their eyes against a light they were certain was coming. It never came. And 60 years later, we still do not know what they were waiting for. If you want to go deeper, The story of the Yuba County Five is waiting for you.